Hey guys, welcome back to another Purpose live stream. Today we're changing it up. Tyler is behind the scenes right now, so I am a little nervous. But then we brought these two. We brought our my two friends Abby and Janice to join us. So we have a really important topic to talk about today on self-worth. So I'm going to make a couple announcements before we get started. But while I'm making announcements, anything you want to put in there about self-worth, just any things that help improve your self-worth, anything that maybe takes away your self-worth, things that, anything, questions you have that we can respond to and engage with, and then we're going to kind of talk about our experiences of self-worth and things that we know about that. But we have lots of announcements. I don't know if I can get through them all, but there's a couple important announcements. One I mentioned yesterday was, hi, Randy. That wasn't the announcement, but the one announcement is that Bruce Perry, he runs the Child Trauma Academy Neurosequential Model. That's a model that we follow at our organization, and I've been learning from him for over years. And he has been doing a lot of stuff with Oprah over the years, and they finally put all their collective work together about what happened to you. So the really important trauma-informed question that helps us understand why people maybe struggle or have trauma reactions or really struggle with things like depression and all those types of things. And so it's an interesting perspective where Dr. Perry teaches us about the neuroscience and trauma, and then Oprah actually shares her own personal experience related to trauma and how that's affecting her. So I encourage everybody to order one and get out there and support this important book. The second thing, which I'm really excited about, is we did a podcast. Kaylee, when was it? The Improbable Players. It's been a few weeks. It's still on our YouTube channel. It's in our Apple and Spotify podcast.
We just published it recently, right?
Right. Yeah. It went up Monday. Okay. So it went up Monday. I can never keep track of these times. But anyways, they're a group out of, actually, I think they started in New York, Boston, and then moved to New York, or did another site in New York. And then they also opened one out in Cleveland. And it's people in recovery. They have to have at least a year in recovery, and they put on performances. Typically, pre-COVID, they would do all of them in person. They would go to lots of different schools and community events and things like that. Now they've adapted several of their plays to be virtual. And so we are hosting Improbable Players to do a performance of, I can't remember, what's the word? I'll Never Do That.
I'll Never Do That.
I'll Never Do That, which actually is related to the founder of Improbable Player, her own personal story with addiction, how it's affected her and her family. So I encourage everybody to purchase a ticket. Go to the links that are shared on a Facebook page and Instagram, and I promise you it'll be a great show. And in the last 15 minutes, you get to join me and Janice for a Q&A with the actors. So it'll be fun, and you can ask any question you want. So
that'd be cool. Yeah,
that'd be good. So I'm curious, because the weather's really messing with me. So it's like 32 degrees one day, and now it's 80, and I can't make sense of that. So my question to you guys is, what is your worst weather? Like, what is the weather you do not like, don't want to deal with?
Cold.
Cold?
Yeah.
Why cold?
Well,
and you guys can comment in the crowd, in the audience, about your worst weather.
So I think a lot of people feel this way also. I like snow, only like the first couple times it snows.
Before it gets all dirty and slushy.
And with my job, I'm like in and out a lot. So like when it's freezing outside, I hate going in and out of the cold all day long. So, and I love being able to I like being outside myself. I like being able to take my kid outside, and I like being able to take my clients outside. I like being able to just breathe fresh air. It's good for me. So it's warm today. I like it. Yesterday was perfect. My ideal temperature.
Yeah. So you don't want to be too hot. So nothing in the extremes.
Yeah. Okay. I do like it maybe if I'm laying on the beach or something. Some
you're
water.
Like a lobster?
Yeah.
Okay.
But just a typical work day. Yesterday I think it was 68 or 70 or something. That was perfect.
It was.
Yeah.
What about you?
Hot and humid is absolute
Really?
trash. I hate it.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you loved it.
No, absolute no. I don't know. My body just, I've adjusted to like polar air temperatures thanks to my significant other. And so like, if it's not, if I can't catch a breeze somewhere, I'm absolutely miserable.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, I see too. So you can always put more clothes on. So
exactly.
I like cold. The super hot, can't do
Absolutely
it.
not. Get lost.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But
Get lost.
actually, my least favorite is rain
Oh my gosh, I
Really?
love rain.
I love
hate
rain.
rain.
too.
Why?
because it messes it just makes everything really dirty and gross. Like the yard, I have a dog. Like it's a lot of toweling off.
yeah,
it's
I guess
it's a
that makes
pain.
I get that.
It's also like I don't know. It's just not fun.
I
It
think it's
ruins a lot of outdoor activities.
I love when it ruins outdoor activities. I love when I
Like outdoor
stuck at
activities.
home.
I love my children's. Not my children's. I love my cousin's children
Wait a
very
minute.
much.
What?
Whoopsies. Oh, whooopsies.
We weren't supposed to know.
I love. Well, out of myself. I love my cousin's children very, very much. What's also fun is watching like 3-year-olds play soccer or like
Have you tried 5-year-old?
5-year-olds learning how to play basketball. But like I will go because I love you unconditionally. But like when it rains and it gets canceled,
But
I'm
you'll
like,
be miserable while you're there.
oh shoot.
I think if I had to be outside
Yeah, but
and
that's different.
the cold rain, now that sounds terrible, but like to be inside, like just like a nice warm evening with the rain, sounds peaceful.
I get the most done when it rains. It's because I have there's no reason to go outside. So I don't feel like bad for staying inside. So I'm the most done and I am the most focused when it's cloudy and raining outside.
Miranda commented, rain is relaxing.
It is.
I agree, Randy.
So is that rain on like one of those tin roofs or 'cause
Upstairs at work is the most relaxing
Yes.
place to be. Rain because the roof sounds.
all right, I'll give you the sound of it if I know I'm going to
Okay.
be staying inside, but like
Not the messiness.
it's not something I would enjoy. Like rain. Like I would enjoy like you're not even enjoying rain, you're just enjoying your inside.
But I like rain.
Like no one's going out, I mean, and dancing in the rain like that one.
My favorite thing to do when I was in better shape was like when there was a light drizzle outside was to run in the rain because it's super
Really?
like it's super regulating for your body. Like the rain is basically like an extra layer of sweat and so your body's like internal systems don't have to work so hard to cool you down because there's rain helping to cool you down too.
So then you can run more, further,
Yeah. It's
faster.
just yeah.
So Olivia
Which Olivia?
Olivia Harris.
Hey Brian, are you feeling better?
Well, she doesn't like allergy season weather, which we're in the middle of, and I
Yes.
keep getting like pollen alerts from my weather app, which
Yeah.
just means I have to pop in some allergy medicine.
I felt so bad because at Sierra's wedding, what was that last weekend? I literally, when April picked me up, I had a box of tissues in the car. And then we had to leave early because I was like, April, my 3 Benadryl are wearing off.
Yeah.
I need to get them quickly before I start having
I
a
would fall
sneeze
right
attack.
asleep, but taking
too.
a
See, I'm immune to it from
Yeah.
just an entire lifetime of having allergies.
I think everybody has had like some type of what seems like a cold, but it's really allergies.
So if you're facing the weather that you don't like, how do you deal with that? What do you do? Do you do anything different? Do you sit around and suffer? Do you make lemonade out of lemons?
I think that when outside is not pleasant to me, it like gives me an excuse to clean my house.
Yes.
It's like because when it's nice outside, I feel like I should be outside.
So bad
know what
weather
I mean?
makes you more productive in the
Yes.
things that you don't normally
Yeah.
maybe necessarily like to do. Like,
Like sit in my
Chores
office and
or work.
do paperwork.
Yeah. Right. Amen,
We could
sister.
be outside.
Amen,
Right.
sister.
yeah, it's hard to do paperwork outside,
I
right?
do paperwork.
Period.
Period.
Right? PJ's couch ice cream. Okay,
Sounds nice.
nice. That is the triple combination. Cool. So the topic for today is self-worth. And so I guess let's start with what do you guys think self-worth is? What does self-worth mean to you? How would you define it for somebody listening that where do we get it from? What's in your mind about self-worth?
So when I think of self-worth, I think of it's how I view myself and what I think I deserve and what I'm worthy of and how I treat myself which goes into a whole nother thing,
Yeah.
you know, but
Yeah, it's like the value that I set for myself.
Yeah.
So, like, today, do I feel like an expensive oriental rug? Or am I like an indoor-outdoor mat from Walmart?
I like it.
Like,
Yeah.
that's, in my mind, kind of how, like, I wouldn't treat, like, an antique oriental rug the same way that I would something that I can just, like, pressure wash
Yes.
off. Like, so growth over time, getting to a place where you feel like you are treating yourself in line with, like, what your values
Yeah.
say about you. 'Cause, like, I think self-worth and humility go together. One of my favorite things that Mike Kukulka ever told me about humility is that humility isn't like dampening ourselves or like undervaluing ourselves. It's making sure that we are recognizing all of the good and all of the bad in us. And so making sure that I'm being honest with myself about my self-worth.
Yeah.
And not like overinflating my price based on my actions. Like, I can't judge myself based on intention and everybody else on action, because that's backwards. Like,
Right.
I can't, it's hypocritical. So making sure that I am staying like balanced about my worth too is important.
So there's a couple things to unpack from what you
Yes.
guys both said. One is it's how you view yourself, how, the kind of value you put on yourself. So my curiosity is, what gives you that value? What shapes the way you view yourself? Where do you garner that from?
Well, that comment from Tim probably helped. Shout out to Tim Kraft.
Thanks for the little ego boost.
Yeah.
So I think it comes from, okay, so for me personally, I can say that I think my addiction started from lack of self-esteem, lack of self-worth, not thinking that I was good enough for certain things. So I settled for less, which then led me to make poor decisions. So then it took years for me to realize what I was capable of doing. So for me, I think it comes from the type of decisions that I make, which also comes from what I value, like Janice was just saying. So there's things that I value in my life. And so based on those, that determines the decisions that I make, like on a daily basis. So like if I feel like I'm doing a good job at work, if I feel like I'm doing a good job at home, if I'm a good mom, a good wife, all of those things, then I feel good about myself. Yeah.
So you've identified things that are important to you in your life, and then you reflect on how you treat those things.
Yeah.
So if I treat work with respect and do the best that I can, then that gives you that internal reward.
Yeah.
If you do the same thing with your husband,
Yeah.
treat the relationship with respect, and you give all your all for that, that happens
Yes.
as well.
Yes. But then I think just as, because Janice kind of brought this up, like there's good and there's bad. And I think that just as humans, really, that we are hard on ourselves, because there could be like a bad day or a bad week. But that doesn't mean I'm just like, I suck.
Right.
You know what I mean? At that thing in particular. Just because I had like a bad week at work doesn't mean like I'm a terrible employee.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, I think that's where like the balance comes from, which is where I struggle, because I can just be hard on myself.
So let me ask you this, or let me ask the people out in the audience, what are people's thoughts about how bad experiences or how negative outcomes play a role in your self-worth, good or bad? Like what does it do? How does it impact you? Because I think that's a difficult thing for most people, because most people will tend to focus on the negative and disregard any of the positive.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, you had a great day of work today, but man, last week really,
Yeah.
And
April, so funny story how this topic came about. When we were talking about this in supervision the other day, Kaylee and I, so something that April has been on me, something it's uncomfortable for me
pushing you,
to receive compliments.
Oh yeah, she's
And
bad at it.
for people to like, tell me. It's different when it's like coming from like when my husband's like, oh, my wife's hot. That's different than like, there was somebody at work that was like, I've seen you on Facebook and I've seen you do this and I've seen you do that. And it's like so awesome. And so my instinct is to be like, it's awkward for me. I don't feel like I deserve praise for like being a drug addict and getting my life together. I think that's
Right.
silly.
Right.
But April's like, but it's not for that. It's because of like, think about all of the things that you do and for people and all of this. So you don't give yourself enough credit. I can tell somebody else that like you don't give yourself enough credit, but it's hard for me to do that. So
What makes it difficult? Is there a fear of something that's going to happen if you take on that
maybe.
praise?
Yeah, there might be. Yeah. So I really think what it is though is I don't ever want to be egotistical. I want to remain humble.
Is that a feeder for addiction?
No, I just think that I don't know how to filter this other than there's people that I know, you know what I mean, or I've had experiences, I should say, that it's easy to let things go to your head. You know what I mean? Especially when you kind of come from like the bottom to the top, you know, and then you start doing all of these good things and you get all of this praise and then you're like, look at me, which I guess it could, you know, be kind of rocky ground when it comes to addiction if you kind of forget where you came from. But that's not my fear. It's just I don't ever want anybody to be like, oh, now she thinks that she's like better than everybody else. You know, I always want to like remain on the same playing field as anybody else that's in recovery. So
I also don't think that many females are taught how to hype themselves up.
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah,
are,
that's good.
and tell me if it was different for you. I feel like I was kind of conditioned growing up that like you don't brag about yourself because
Yeah.
if you brag about yourself, that's not ladylike, that's not becoming, that's not the kind of like attitude.
Yeah.
That
So did you get overt messages to not do that?
Yeah.
Okay, because like I don't think we got messages. Like my parents wouldn't really talk to me about you don't brag.
Yeah.
Unless, and I don't think I ever really did. So
Yeah.
I don't know if they really needed to correct me or anything. But no one's ever had that kind of overt message. But I definitely think it's interesting that females getting that overt message of you have to
yes.
not hype
Hu-
yourself up and
I think humility for women is making yourself less than.
Yeah.
Like you can never
that
actually
heard kinda thing.
you can never actually talk about the things that you are proud of yourself for, because doing that means that you are egotistical and self-centered, and that's, you know, a woman's role is to serve
Right.
and, you know, all of those
Submit
things.
and-
yes. So when you are just reporting the news about what you're doing and how
Yes.
proud you are of yourself,
Right.
that's not something that's like really depending on who you're talking to, it's tolerated differently. But I would say in society, the easiest thing to do as a woman is just never brag about yourself, because you don't know the audience that you're around and how they're going to respond to that.
Yeah. Which we should be able to brag about ourselves. You know what I mean? And that's what I am learning. There's a way to do it and to be proud of yourself without being egotistical and
Yes.
without like bragging so much.
Yeah.
I think there's like a healthy and unhealthy way to brag and to be proud. Because there's things that I should be proud of myself for, and I am. I just don't like to maybe express them or acknowledge them when they come from other people, which I think plays, you know, into the self-worth thing too.
Yeah, because again, like self-worth, self-esteem, self-image, all of those words are sometimes used interchangeably, and I'm sure that there's nuance between all of them, but they all involve the word self, meaning that I shouldn't be looking towards other people to help me create whatever comes after the word self. So image, worth, esteem,
Yes.
whatever. And I think sometimes that's how we can get into like egotistical land, is if we don't ever check
Yes.
the way that we're feeling about ourselves against other people's perception or experiences with us.
Yeah.
Because then I can get like delusional and egotistical and just completely lose sight
Right.
of the reality of who I am and what
Yes.
I'm good at and what I struggle with, which knowing what you struggle with is important as well. It can't just be like, it's important to have a list of all of your strengths, but it's just as important to have a list of your vulnerabilities so that you know when to reach out and ask for help. Because, you know, when you were asking about negative experiences, the most important like if I look back, the most important events that helped create my current self-worth were not when things went well. They were not when things went the way that I wanted them to. They were when things didn't go the way that I wanted to, or a way that upset me, or a situation that maybe would have caused me to doubt myself. But the other side of that, like I have a better picture of myself, a better understanding of myself. So depending on how you look at negative events, those are
So you garner your self-worth from learning experiences, from learning from things that don't go well, or that's very powerful to you, to be able to kind of pull yourself back up and learn and actually reflect on what's going on, and okay, now I can be better because of this negative experience.
Yeah. And so I can't remember where I heard it. Probably I've been rewatching The Last Dance on Netflix. So it's probably Michael Jordan. But basically this reframing the idea of failure into rebranding failure not as failure, but as a demonstration of a way not to succeed. So like certain attributes, certain attitudes, certain actions, certain behaviors, those did not help me succeed. Not that those caused me to fail, but those did not help me succeed. And so like, okay, now I know, is that an innate part of myself that I'm going to need to put in consistent work to check? Was that just like a place that I was at in my life? And so it's easier to move past it. Rebranding that, I think, has also been helpful to not fall down those rabbit holes of negativity.
Yeah. So Lacey, who's been a great participator on this, blah, blah, blah. She says, self-worth to me is believing I'm worthy as a person. However, when negative things happen, I try to give grace to myself and others. So what do you guys think about grace and to myself and others? So it's even also a very relational thing. So it might be...
Well, I think more and more the older I get, the way that I treat other people is a reflection of my self-worth, is a reflection of my self-esteem and the way that I see myself. So if I'm treating other people negatively, there's probably something going on inside of me that I need to like examine and check. And so again, you got to ask other people, like, is the picture in my head matching what you are seeing from my actions? And I think, giving grace it's a fantastic concept. And it is, yes, absolutely, everyone deserves grace. But how much grace do people deserve? Like, how much grace are you giving versus are you just not maintaining your boundaries?
So Lacey, maybe you can answer this, but what does grace look like?
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
I think there has to be a different standard for each person. You know what I mean? Because I give grace to people, but there's also a standard, like enough is enough. You know?
So as somebody like who used to supervise you, for example, like if you, like the days that were really hard that you came to me and you were like a mess. Yeah. Those days got grace. Those days I'm not going to ask you about like, okay, well, I'll have this conversation with you after you do your paperwork. No. Right. Like sometimes you just have to meet a person as a person and drop all the other expectations. But then the expectations do come back. Yes. And so I would say grace is meeting a person where they're at, caring about them enough to find out like, what do you need from me right now? Yeah. And then can we hop back to whatever else was expected out of our dyad, out of our relationship, after we get through what you're going through as a person. Yeah. Like to me, that's what grace is. If I ask for grace, if I give grace, it's typically because there is some situation. Yes. That is distracting you or derailing you.
I like to use the word or the term sloppy grace.
Okay.
Sloppy grace.
Because there's grace and then there's sloppy grace. Because we can say like everybody deserves grace. But that can get kind of sloppy, you know, when you're just excusing everybody's behavior. Yeah. You know, for their poor decisions. And then it's like, well, everybody deserves grace. Well, you know, to a certain extent.
So like I've seen, again, big fan of TikTok here. Yeah, same. There was a period of time, probably maybe like January, February-ish, where a lot of my For You page was teachers talking about Like you can't say all year from administration, like, we have to give the kids grace. This is like an unprecedented experience. And then come around in February and be like, okay, but standardized testing is happening and none of you are getting a raise because your kids don't have work turned in.
Yes.
Right.
You told me to give them grace. Where does that end and where does accountability begin?
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I think that also really tries to be with people where they're at. So it's not even necessarily like, so if someone really harms me in some way, like someone within my relational group, like friends, family, or whatever, don't necessarily mean that I'm going to give up on this person or say you're out of my life, but I might not be going out to lunch with them for a while, or I might be needing some time to break and maybe revisit.
Yes.
But I think what often happens is we don't ever resolve problems. So the problem with wanting to not give people grace all the time is because there's so many of these problems that are left undealt with. So there's no safety in revisiting or coming back because we haven't worked through things. And so I think at some point, if you care about the relationship, or you can't really necessarily get out of the relationship, like, you know, kids and you're the teacher, or your own kids, or whatever, like, those are things that when we leave problems unsolved, it becomes, you know, it makes it harder for us to be understanding, and because it just piles up and we don't ever move forward.
Yeah, and everybody deserves an answer to their question. Everybody deserves a resolution to, you know, whatever it is that causes you upset. But also recognizing and realizing that the person on the other side of that conflict may not be able to really level with you. Some people just aren't spiritually ready, emotionally ready, mentally ready. They may not have enough insight. They may not be ready to be honest with themselves about why things are happening. And so everybody deserves to ask for the answer to the question, but nobody should be judging themselves because somebody else isn't ready to help you resolve that situation. Do you know what, like those, you are worthy of asking. That doesn't mean that you're going to get the answer. Like, we have to separate like the action impetus from the resolution, because typically the resolution involves more than just yourself. Involves active participation on both sides.
Well, and Lacey said something that the key word is, at least that I'm taking from it, is try. So you do your best, and sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. So Lacey then says, definitely meeting people where they're at, but keeping your boundaries in check. There's a clear difference between giving grace to those who need it and those who take advantage of it. Certainly.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
For sure. And there's like this kind of like, I'm sure it's been around for a while, but this saying that like, be careful what you allow because you're teaching people how to treat you.
Right.
That's, again, I can just, as an observer of people, as somebody who works helping people, listening to them share stories about the things that they allow other people to kind of get away with when it comes to the way that they treat other people, like, that tells me a lot about what you think about yourself.
Yes, exactly. I was just telling somebody that today. You know, the people that you are surrounding yourself with is just a reflection of what you think you deserve. And for so long, if your whole life, basically, some of these people, you know, you think that you're worth nothing. So it's hard to come back from that, you know, and to think that you deserve more.
And there's also, I think, a struggle when you do find somebody that treats you with respect and, you know, just like basic human decency.
Yeah.
Some people are just like so blown away that then that person kind of gets the benefit of like, I don't have boundaries. I don't know what to expect from other people. So that person eventually gets the opportunity to walk all over somebody if they don't take time to learn and understand and take like the self-reflection.
Well, I also think trying to understand other people's situation or the context of what led to that
Yeah.
is helpful to keep it in perspective, so you don't generalize that everybody's like that.
Yeah.
so that, okay, everybody, is going to treat me that way. So then I might as well just isolate myself in my room and never go out in
Yeah.
public.
Yep.
Yep.
Because those things can be traumatic.
Yes.
And, and so we have in a protective nature, we're going to try to avoid everything.
Yeah.
And so Tyler says that I've struggled with shame a lot growing up, and I'm now learning how to create healthy boundaries to treat myself better with self-worth.
Yeah.
So there's actually research around self-worth, and I'm curious what you guys think and what people in the...
Educate me, Doug. What's
Yeah.
the research?
So there's 4
know.
components to self-worth. Okay. The first component is significance, that we should feel significant in our lives or to somebody. This is more of kind of related to connection, that we should have people in our lives that we feel significant to.
Yeah.
Not in the egotistical, like
Yeah.
I am the greatest person in
Right.
the world, but significant in that I feel connected to people that care about me and
Yes.
make me feel important to them.
Yeah.
Right. Second one is competence.
Okay.
So we need to be good at something.
Yeah.
We want to, no one wants to be bad at things. So we want to
Right.
be good at things. So we want to have skills. We want to be able to be successful in the things that we choose to do.
Yeah.
Then power is the fourth, which is not power over others, but power power over your own life.
Yeah.
So being able to kind of have choice and
Yeah.
function in your own life. I can choose the path that I want to go on. I'm not, just doing what everybody else tells me. And then the last one is virtue, which is more about sense of purpose, sense of value in our life.
I think that's really good. Because I think about, which my brain always just automatically goes to people that are trying to get sober, so in the beginning the first one is like feeling connected, right? So you're not connected to anybody except, toxic
Drug.
people. Yeah. Or drugs. And you probably don't know anybody that you've burnt every bridge with every person you know.
Yeah.
You don't know anybody, or you don't feel like you deserve
Yes.
to be with anybody that would be safe
Yeah.
in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think of the other ones kind of as, well, then power, I think of purpose. I think of purpose of all of those. You know what I mean? Like you have to feel connected and you have to know like where you're headed and that you can make decisions. And when you're in recovery, you don't even know that you can make decisions for yourself. You know what I mean? You've let something control your life for so long that you don't even know you have that ability. And you have zero purpose in life because your only purpose has been to do drugs.
Right.
So all of that equals zero self-worth,
Yeah.
And so it's like, now, so what do you do to be better, and to find some of that self-worth?
Well, and so to me, when I hear it, because I always think about like the work that I've done with kids or just in general, it's like anywhere I've worked, are super awesome at building connections,
Yeah.
building trust, things like that, and giving them skills and teaching them how to do things and trying to build that confidence. But do we encourage independence? Like, do we encourage people to make their own choices? And I as soon as you kind of were talking about, I think about all the people that are in addiction that are maybe under government control, or like, how do they get that experience of
Yes.
having power over their lives when
Yep.
they always have to answer to somebody?
Yeah.
So that particular concept comes up frequently.
Yes.
I'm a member of the treatment team for Compass Drug Court
Sure.
here in Washington County. And a lot of times in the treatment team meetings, we'll be talking about things, and we will be, as a group of individual adults, having a conversation about somebody else and the life choices that somebody else has in front of them, and trying to kind of debate and figure out what's going to
What
work
they
best
should
for
do.
that person.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's their
And we
choice?
always have to, like, somebody at some point calls it out and brings us back to, people do best when, like, long term, people do the best when we get out of the way.
Yeah.
Let them make their choice and make sure they understand that they have support behind them if they later like to do something to change that choice.
Right.
Like, get out
Learn
of the
those
way.
experiences.
Let them know that they have support, but let them make their own choices, because decision making is a skill
Yeah.
Yeah.
that you over time. So nobody's ever going to make all the right choices.
Yeah.
And I always joke with people. I'm always like, listen, if you guys would just do everything that I say when you're trying to get sober, everybody's life, my job, everything would be so
The title
much
of your
easier.
next book, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Just do what
it
I
is.
say.
Just do what I say.
But then because so I think about myself and I think about, somebody with authority trying to tell me what to do and I just didn't listen. I just said, peace out, I'm gonna do my own thing. But then I see people now that do everything that somebody tells them what to do. Probation, drug court, whoever it is that's like in charge of them.
Yeah.
But then once they lose that accountability or that control, then it's like, I really can make my own decisions. You know what I mean? And so like, look out.
Yeah.
Because they've never been able to, so that's why I think that it's important for them to like back up
Right.
and don't be so like controlling. In the beginning, people do need that. And I think, I don't know, I could
I'm
be
hearing
guilty of it too.
I'm hearing a visceral experience difference between doing something when you're under government control and getting that moment those
Like the
Shackles?
chains.
the shackles come off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, like
Yes.
freedom, like, and so then all of a sudden your executive functioning kind of goes away
Yeah.
because you're like, man, look what I get to do. I don't have to have people watching for me and
Yeah.
everything like that.
And all of this planning, like all of this relapse prevention and everything that they've worked on in treatment just goes out the window because it's like that, I don't know, that ability to make your own decisions kind of is like,
Well,
haven't
they've
lived-
never had that opportunity to
Yeah.
experience it, and you can't just figure it out without
Right.
actually being in that opportunity.
Yeah.
You have to practice putting on the brakes.
yeah.
You have to have practice in a real situation.
Yes.
Like it can't be a
Yes.
fake, like structured. I
So
mean, it has to
every
be.
every relapse prevention plan I've ever done, if they don't bring it up, I'm like, so what are you gonna do when you run into your plug at 2nd Street Speedway? What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Like, well, I think I'd just walk away. Okay, I didn't ask you what you think you would do. I asked you what you would do. They're like, I would, and then they just change their verbiage. I would walk away. I will walk away.
Yeah.
I don't need that in that moment. State dependent functioning. There's absolutely no stress, so you can engage with your whole cortex
Yeah,
and
you're
make a logical, realistic,
Right.
positive decision for yourself. But then when you're 11 o'clock at night, you just got off work, it was really stressful at the restaurant, and
Maybe
you run
your
into
boss
Speedway,
yelled at you that
and
day and
you run
you're
into
pissed.
Speedway to like get some Pringles and a Red Bull,
And you just got
and
off
you walk
probation.
outside and like bam, there they are.
Yeah.
It's entirely different because you weren't under stress. You didn't have like your brain wasn't flooding you with all of those like chemicals and everything else. It has to, the only chance that you really get to learn is in the situation. And as a person who loves and cares very much about people who have addictions, I think it's important to point out that almost every time that I have ever flexed and made a decision for somebody in recovery, it was because I was afraid.
Yeah.
I was afraid of what would happen to you if I didn't.
Yeah.
And so in order to manage my fear, I kind of pushed my will onto you because like, yes, logically I can probably say that like me making a decision that would put you in a position where you can't do heroin is like good. But I don't know that that's like what you need
Yeah.
to get better. So every time that we try to flex, that we try to exert our will, that we try to control other people, it's almost always because we are afraid of something.
of the outcome and
Of
or-
something happening to you, of what that means for me. Like it's always fear-based.
Sure.
Always.
And you know, I mean, there's elements of it takes work to work through a problem, but it is the most powerful learning experience is to problem solve a problem and work through it. Just slapping putting them in jail for 30
Right.
days doesn't necessarily do anything.
Yeah. And it's really hard to be a person who is addicted, but it's also very, very hard to be somebody who loves somebody who is in active
Yeah.
addiction.
Right?
Yeah.
And
You're telling me to do what? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but I love them. I love that person. What
Yeah.
am I gonna?
yeah, because it's really easy to justify and
And
overstep and then not allow somebody else to create their own picture of self-worth, their own boundaries, because I am so afraid, and I can justify because if I don't, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Well, and people are sometimes good at really tapping into those parts of you that will make you kind of manipulate you emotionally, hijacks your brain to where you start feeding into that piece. So Tyler, can you guys give any personal experiences where you felt invalidated, or when well-intended people tried to be helpful but they end up shutting down a conversation by invalidating the situation? That's an interesting question.
It is interesting. I'm trying to think.
I almost think that, I don't know if I can really pinpoint any recent examples, but certainly anytime someone assumes they know the problem and have trouble accepting any other, like when people, like if I do something that upsets somebody and they assume that I was doing it on purpose, or that I was trying to do something that I wasn't trying to do. I mean, it could be as simple as even if I said something rude, like it wasn't like I set out to do that, and so the conversation is you get these roadblocks where you can't really get past because they're creating something that I can't really prove that I didn't intend it.
Yeah.
All I can say is no, that's not really how it went down. But so when it becomes kind of, and that's those are those times where I guess I kind of feel shut down, where those roadblocks are thrown up, to where it's like, okay, I don't know where to go with that, because I might as well just kind of leave this conversation, because if you think that, then I can't do anything about that. And so that would, I guess, be probably the example that resonates best with me.
Yeah. I mean, I've had experience with that, where you say something that you didn't mean it a certain way, and somebody takes it the wrong way. But I guess, so that would affect my self-worth kind of maybe a few years ago. I'd be like, great, or, whatever. And then I'd be hard on myself. But now I'm just like I'm sorry. Sorry that you feel that way,
Right.
I feel like one example of a time that I've seen what you were trying to share be shut down by other people is when you're talking about your experience, talking about how you got here, and then other people try to say that you're special, you're different, you're a miracle. Like there's just something about you. Like it frustrates you so much.
Yeah.
Like after we leave the situation, to be like, but I'm not though.
Yeah.
Like I just did what was asked of me and like listened to people, like everybody can do this. Like that's one time that I've just, at a certain point, you just shut down. You're like, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah. Last week, actually, my friend and I went to talk to this girl that somebody had reached out. It was her daughter that was struggling, and she, I guess, maybe had agreed to go to treatment, but there was still like, she wasn't sure. So we went, and she was very rude to me. I've actually never had anybody be that rude to me when I was just there to help. So I was trying to just like share my experience, because she was like unsure why we were even there. And I was like, well, let me just kind of like tell you a little bit about like where I came from. So I started like sharing. She's like, but I didn't ask your experience, because we are different, and you don't, maybe we have similar experiences, but you don't know. You're not me. And I was like, okay. So I tried to be nice for the longest time. And then finally I was like, okay, I'm here out of my, like the kindness of my heart, you know what I mean? Just because I like to help people, but you don't have to be rude to me. So I will gladly just go on about my way. And if you need anything else, you can call me, So I've never experienced that before. I've never had anybody, even like in the depths of, like a heroin addiction, sick, like puking, be like, well, I didn't ask for your experience. I'm like, oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
I would say probably the most frustrating time where I experience invalidation is when I'm trying to explain to other people how my brain works because it's not the same as everybody
Yeah.
else's. Like when I texted you after EMDR and I was like, it just wasn't sinking in, and you were like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, it just like, it does this sometimes. Like sometimes it's just like, no, I don't care what kind of fun and like wonderful information you're trying to put in here. Like I said, no. Like it just sometimes does not connect. And then other times it's full 100%. And like I've been having these conversations, not conversations, but like little things here and there with my dad where, you know, he'll bring up something and he says, well, he said he'd do it. They said they do it, blah, blah, blah. Like, did they agree with you? Or did they make an affirmative statement? Because those are different things in my brain. If somebody says, hey, can you blah, 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 and I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. That is very different from me being like, hey, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
There's a different level of action there. It gets coded in a very different place in my brain. So to hold me accountable to both the same, no. Because they didn't end up in the same place. One is indicative that like I'm agreeing with you because I need the dopamine hit of agreeing with you, and the other one is like actual desire to like do something.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I
Oh my gosh, the worst is when somebody's like, well, you just need to figure out how to focus. You think?
If you figure it out,
think?
please let me know.
Yeah.
true. Like, oh, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Right.
oh my gosh, it's like telling somebody with anxiety, just calm down.
Yeah.
It's been 42.
God
Yeah.
bless America.
Yeah. What I think any times where you probably also feel a sense of maybe not belonging or not fully feeling a part of something. Like how do I, during that point where you're trying to fit in to a group or situation.
Yeah.
Like, whether you're new to the group or whatever, or you just, struggling, but being able to kind of, can my voice be heard?
Yeah.
Will people listen? Will people, and I think that's been probably true for me in various parts of my career.
Yeah.
I was thinking about, like, when you guys were talking about that, I'm like, oh my gosh, my whole last job. Like, there was lots of invalidating experiences, lots of assumptions about what I was doing or going through or any of that, and not being able to kind of just have anybody try to understand what I needed. They just made decisions and, so.
Well, and going back to those 4 things that you were talking about when it came to self-worth, like as I'm sitting here thinking about those more, it's a pretty decent explainer to me about why I focus so much more on work than I do my personal life. Like I feel more significant in my professional role. I feel like I am more important to people in my professional role, maybe than I am in my personal life to people. I feel definitely a 10 times greater amount of competence when it comes to like my
Right.
role as a professional person versus just like, who am I?
Yeah.
Where am I going? What am I
Yeah.
doing? Like all 4 of those things I have a clearer idea of and understanding of, and can wrap my mind around them better when it comes to like my work and my job versus my social life, and other people are completely opposite.
Yeah. I think that I am the opposite, and that's why I am a lot better at creating boundaries when it comes to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I find purpose at work, but it's easy. But I also find purpose at home and the things that I do outside of work. So I think that's why it's like work brain on, work brain off. You know what I mean?
Well,
Yeah.
well, for me, it's kind of tough because number one, I feel significant there at work.
Yeah.
Number two, I feel good at what I do,
Yep.
so
Right.
I know what I'm doing. I'm pretty independent
Yeah.
in my position, and I feel like I have a purpose. So that is my job becomes my worth.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so not doing my job or, and I don't mean at all, but setting a boundary for a
Yeah.
period of time, creates that stress and anxiety because you don't want to lose that work. So things are tied to external forces or are given more weight than it should. Like if you have one piece that's got 100% of your worth and another section of your life that has 0%, you put all your eggs in one basket, you're in trouble.
So conversations that you and I have had about my hypothetical future with like work and life and everything, and like all of the different avenues we could take. Like there's, if I didn't have this, if I didn't have this job, if I wasn't doing this, like there is serious question in my mind of like, does my perception of myself, like I think that's why I'm so attached to my, like, I feel like somebody who's like peaking in high school, that I'm like, I was given this job at 29 years old. Like that doesn't happen. Do you know what I mean? So like to step away from it and do something else, like, do I ever get this feeling back?
Yeah.
So it is very externally tied because of everything that you just were talking about.
Right. Yes. You will not get that feeling back.
No, not unless I just, Doug's like, let me just casually emotionally manipulate you on the live stream.
So here's something that I think about, which I've thought about before. So for people like you and like Janice and like Kaylee even, so as somebody in like recovery, you both know that like my life is very much that, because it has to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like even somebody that just works a 12-step program, like that is very much like your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You go to meetings, you help others, like that's what you have to do to stay sober, even if whatever it is. But then if you just, you know, like you guys were talking about, find your worth in your job, and you just have like a work life and a home life. Obviously, I'm sure everybody has like some sort of like hobby or something. Maybe I didn't, because I did drugs. So
That was your hobby.
that was my hobby.
Heroin was your hobby.
So I hate when people say like, what do you like to do for fun? Oh, I don't really know still. So,
Yeah.
you know, I feel like does that make it hard? You know what I mean? To have like this like balance, because I feel like that's why it's easier for me, maybe because I have this like, I find such worth and purpose in this thing that I have to do to make myself better, to even be productive and to be, you know, employable.
Right.
I have to do this thing outside of work. But if I wasn't in recovery, it wouldn't matter what I did. So maybe I would be like, I'll work till 6 p.m. every night and I don't care about going home. You know what I mean? Especially if I didn't have kids and I wasn't married.
6 p.m. is early.
Yeah, see, that seems late to me.
See, Doug emails me at like 11 p.m. and I'm just like, sir, calm down. I have my weighted blanket on.
I'm just
I will-
now starting my night at 11.
I will get back to
be
you later.
fair, if I send you an email, you can wait till you read it the next day.
Yeah.
If I send you a
She
text,
Yes,
you're right on it.
now. You have exactly 60 seconds to respond to the text, or else you're getting a phone call.
like, there's some problems.
No.
I mean, but yeah, because my mind works like this. It's in my brain. I need to get it out,
Yeah.
or I will lose it.
Yeah.
That's how Tim is.
Or I will, because sometimes the thought comes in my brain. I'm like, man, that is really beautiful. I need to get it down. And
Yeah.
if I don't, and so my wife would be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, I got to get it on the
Yeah.
computer because I know the kids are in the bath, but I got to get on
Yeah.
the computer.
God bless Jamie. Let's get her an award. Let's I don't know, let's give her a Dundee or something at this year's
A Dundee.
Christmas party.
Well, she'll have to watch The Office to really.
Excellence in support staff.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Janie Pfeiffer. Here you go.
I get that, because Tim is like that. It's like if he has to do something, if somebody texts him at 11 p.m. and says, can you like make me a flyer for this? He's like, and I'm like, I thought you were going to like, he likes to like play PlayStation and do things
Yeah.
to like unplug. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, I thought you were going to like play PlayStation or watch this show that you wanted to watch. Nope, got to do it right now. And I'm like, you are so annoying. Because I can just like shut it off. But that's just me, you know? And I can just close my eyes and go to sleep.
Yeah.
But he
Oh,
cannot.
don't get me wrong. I can go to sleep. I can close my
Yeah.
eyes and go to sleep.
Okay,
It's
that's good.
until then, that's the problem.
Yeah. I also
Yeah.
have to play The Office in the background so that I don't get stuck in my thoughts
Distracted.
to go
Yeah.
to sleep. Because
Yeah.
if I don't distract my brain, it will never stop. But as an unmarried person without children,
Yeah.
because the way that you balance is different because you do have a role outside of work.
What?
I'm supposed to identify as a parent, he says. What?
Of 3?
Yes.
Really? I feel like that's totally unfair.
Right. So, I mean, I have always kind of told myself, like, in the event that I ever do get married or have children, I will never have this much selfish time.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go all in. Eventually, someday I might have to balance it, but that day is not today. And then, in the past, I found myself getting resentful about the fact that, like, you know, like when I used to work restaurant jobs, right? And the Mother's Day, Christmas, whatever. And they're like, okay, so because you don't have kids, you're going to work Thanksgiving.
Oh, right.
Excuse?
Yeah.
Like, I still have people that I care about that I want to spend time with. You can't dump that. But then in this current role, it's like, well, you can't work like you don't have kids because you don't. Like, you can't work like that and then get upset with people when they take that outlook and apply it to other things outside of your choice. Like, I can't have it both ways. If I'm gonna go all in, I have to be all in, and I have to be willing to step up so that people with families can have more balance.
Yeah. But then I feel like you get, not maybe you personally, I'm not trying to call you out, but
Like, you can if you want. We're on a live stream. It's fine.
but then it's easy to get overwhelmed.
If you have anything to
that
confront me
way.
about, now would be the perfect time. Abby.
Sorry, Facebook.
Taking our baggage.
It's easy. Well, it's easier to get overwhelmed that way. You know what I mean? Because I know you like to take on like all of these projects, which is good. But then it's like, well, I don't have
Remind me,
anything
I
else
gotta
to
talk
do.
to you afterwards.
Sorry, Janice.
No, you're good.
I just reminded him.
I'm just kidding.
That one thing he was thinking about at 11 o'clock last night.
Yeah.
So it's easy to take on a lot. You know what I mean? Which then your self-care is neglected.
Yeah, and for a little bit more than a year, I've been a part of a group that's helped me to learn how to prioritize myself and to do so with balance and boundaries and like really in a lot of ways find my worth outside of my job. Because I would say January of 2020, every bit of me was my job. Everything. And since January 2021, being a part of this group and having mirrors around me has helped me understand that, like, I don't have to respond to his email at 11 o'clock. I don't have to answer the phone every time he calls. Like, he will leave a voicemail. Like, I don't have to be on all the time. Like, I can turn off and I can find, like, comfort in that. Like, there's nothing wrong with me for not literally killing myself to help other people, because before, all of my worth was measured externally by what people said and thought about me. Over the course of the last 16-ish months, it's definitely not done, but it's getting better that, like, I can put my job away and say, like, I may not have done everything, but what I did today was enough. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm finding balance in that, but only through the help of other people who call me out on my stuff. They're like, did you drink water today? I'm like, no, fine, I'll go find some water.
So that was kind of on my mind of external being the source of your self-worth. And I feel like, and you guys can tell me if you have a different perspective, but the way our society is and the way we grow up, it feeds the need to get your self-worth externally. Like, everything is in a process of, if you don't perform at this level, bad things happen. Or you need to meet my expectations all the time. You need to follow the rules that I set. And if you don't, bad things happen and you're chastised for not doing that. And very often we are not encouraging kids to think for themselves, or people, for that matter, to think for themselves. Like, the idea of critical thinking is a very challenging task for people, because it's groupthink, it's whatever the proximity is talking about. That's, our ability to hear somebody speaking something that doesn't resonate or fit with what we think is right. We're afraid to speak up and say, because there's not an environment where those things are allowed without significant consequences. So then the ramifications are, we're continually seeking out the approval of others, you need to tell me how good I am. or I'm going to keep trying to. And I think that's where I see self-worth is self-worth really, and I would even going back to intrinsic motivation. What are the things that internally drive you?
Yeah.
Like not the approval. I mean, even to say is not the approval of your husband or wife, not even
Yeah.
the approval of your kids. Like we've
Yeah.
had parenting conversations where, you know, your self-worth can't be rooted in the way the kids view you.
Yeah.
As staff members in a residential program, you can't root your self-worth in whether the kids love you or not.
Right.
You have to find that worth in maybe what you do or how you function, what drives you, those types of things internally.
When you started talking about like external validation and overcoming that, like my most vivid like experience of that is and has been academic. So I went to Catholic school. Our curriculum was advanced by all standards. I literally never had to study, not once. Same thing happened in high school. Like my honors biology class, my freshman year of high school was the textbook that we used for 7th grade science at St. Mary's. So when I say I did not have to try at all, like didn't have to try at all.
Right.
Like I just showed up and got a 4.0. And then when I went to college and realized that I didn't have any study skills, I didn't know how to prepare, how to store information. I'd just been able to like ride a wave of like really good preparation and context clues. And I was in a very supportive, environment in elementary school. When I got to college, and don't get me wrong, the first like year of college, I earned my academic probation. But then when I wanted to like actually start trying, and I was like, okay, like now you should probably try, Janice. You don't want to flunk out of college. I was applying myself and I wasn't getting the same results. And I was just like, excuse? Like, who am I if I don't have a 4.0?
Yeah.
Who am I if I am not the smart one? You know what I mean? Like, there's all of these descriptors that, and the academic measure of success was the first external measure that I looked to. And so figuring out how to not be the person who is going to have a 4.0 was my first kind of challenge
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah. I started teaching at Marietta College for educational students in trauma-informed schools, and grading has been the hardest task for me. Or coming up with like exams or things to grade them on, and I'm like I don't want them just to know the content to pass the test and then like I want them to walk away changed. I want their mindset to be cemented in this kind of approach, or at least be able to, talk about it or challenge the concept. I want it to be, like how do you evaluate that where it's like everything is just like no one's kind of encouraged. And so this has been a real like eye-opening experience for me, because I'm like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. Like it makes like that part like not fun, and because there is this idea of like what do I want my kids to walk away with, that they learn. And that's a really, I don't know.
Yeah.
I interjected.
No, I struggle with now, like being in college, even if I get like a 98 out of 100 on my paper and it has like the little like bubble where my professor left me a little note, and it could just be like, see rubric for, more detail or more feedback or whatever. I literally cannot bring myself to read them because I'm so like, I don't want to see what I did wrong. You know what I mean? Like I got an A and I passed. That's all I care about. I do not want to see what he told me I did wrong. But I force myself to do it because that's how I'm learning. You know what I mean? It's like, Abby, you're going to keep getting 98s if you don't look at what you did wrong. It could be like something silly, which it usually is. But I was thinking about when you were talking, what did you tell me about the doctor? What is,
do you know what they call a doctor who gets D's?
does anybody know?
I don't.
A doctor. You still get your medical degree as long as you pass the board exam. Like same thing with like my master's program. I had to get a C in everything. Do you know what I'm called? A licensed professional clinical counselor. Like I still got my master's degree.
Yeah.
Like figure out kind of not what the bare minimum is, but like are the expectations that you have for yourself realistic? And I think being able to move on from like, oh, well, I'm not the gifted kid anymore. Because St. Mary's was a very small, insulated experience. Going to high school was a complete culture shock. There were 7 kids, including myself, that graduated 8th grade from St. Mary's. And then I went into the largest freshman class and the largest graduating class of Merida High School that I think has ever been there. So I was absolutely like wrecked. I was like, what? People are disrespectful. We don't pray before meals. I don't understand what's happening. Like somebody just punched somebody. I don't understand. And so like I had to figure out like what is my next competence? Like what is the next thing that I find intrinsic motivation in? So when it couldn't be academics anymore, like I had to start expanding like, okay, well, what else about me would I like to spend time on? What else would I like to identify with? And so like reaching into yourselves and like, I don't know that I have hobbies. Like April crafts and like, you know, whatever. Like I don't have a hobby. I always joke all the time. Like my hobby is
Watching The Office.
sitting on this butt and watching TikTok.
Yes.
Right now, that is my hobby. It's not particularly productive, but it makes me very happy.
And sharing TikToks with other people.
All day, every day.
It's fun.
But like,
Those are my 11 o'clock texts. Like, hey, did you see this one?
yeah, I'm like, oh, here's the funny Star Wars thing, nerd. Yeah. But I find it difficult to find different areas of myself to find competence in, I think, because once I feel confident in something, it's really difficult to like let go because I also tend to like hyperfixate on things. So once I find something that I'm really good at, I'm like, I'm going to be the best at this forever. And I have a hard time looking past that while I'm still in a position of competence. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have a thought. So there's one concept, and I'll go nerdy brain science here.
Oh, surprise.
But one of the things that, and I think it relates to people in treatment or people just trying to better themselves, that one of the things that changes the brain is facing a challenge, like stressing, like pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. I think that if you don't ever push yourself out of your comfort zone, it's going to be really hard to really find a foundational, strong self-worth.
I agree. Just like we were talking about before, that, you know, for some people, like doing something like this, getting on a live stream and just like talking about a topic is uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And if you were to ask people, I feel like 5 out of 10 people would probably say no, possibly. But you don't know if you're capable of doing it, because I would have never done anything like this if Tim wouldn't have been like, you're just doing it. You know what I mean? Because that's what somebody did for him. They just gave him a microphone and was like, this is what you're doing. Talk about this. So, and it's the same thing with like school. I like at the beginning of the week when I look at my papers, and even in the beginning, we won't talk about that, Janice, but, and I'm like, I cannot do this. Like there's absolutely no way I can write this paper, but then I just do it, you know? And then it's like, oh, okay. So unless you're challenging yourself, then you don't know what you're capable of doing. And I feel like life is just, and it keeps it kind of exciting. Life is full of challenges. I've been telling April, like, I need something new to do, something challenging. Give me something fun, challenging to do.
Well, and I would imagine, you know, in your life, like, I'm sure there were plenty of people said that you can kick this, you can get through this. There's no, you got this, you're strong enough, everything like that. And that probably didn't work.
No.
You know, like, so people telling us at a cognitive level that we have the ability to do it doesn't really do anything until you can have that experience of doing something that makes it kind of a reality. Yeah. You know, you have to have that
there's
sensory experience.
There's a difference between logical understanding and emotional acceptance.
Right. Yeah.
In so many different things.
Because so many people, like, forever would tell me, like, you know, you have like this much potential and you could be doing this and you could be doing that and you should be all of these things, but you're this. But it none of that changed anything about myself. You know what I mean? It didn't. But it wasn't until I was like, I want to do this for myself. I can do this. I don't really know how, but I want to. And these are the suggestions that other people have given me. So I'm going to try it because that's what I want.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think the resource center is probably the most relevant example for my life about things that stress us. I had no idea what I was doing when I started that project. You and I were just like, this is a good idea. Let's do it. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And then here we are. And I had to do all this, literally create a business and a nonprofit organization. And now I have to like train volunteers. Like it's a lot. And there are many times consistently throughout the entire process that if I really let it in, I absolutely want to give up. I'm like, there's 0% chance. I do not know what I'm doing. I am completely, somebody else needs to take over this so that I can let go, because if I keep going, I'm going to screw it up. But then I am equally stubborn as I am scared about things. And so when I have those thoughts, and my dad asked me at some point, he said something about something, and I can't remember the context, but my answer to him was, there's no chance this fails. I will do everything until this succeeds. So like, I am just as stubborn as I am scared, but like the fear is still there. Like the absolute doubt is always there, but like, that's a part of being alive. Like if I never experience doubt, if I never experience failure, if I never experience hardship, then I'm just playing it safe. And that's not a particularly fun story to write a eulogy about one day. So, you know, like I was saying before, like the things that I like the most about myself today are things that I've only learned about myself because of something bad happening, something negative.
At least,
yes.
at minimum, a challenge.
Yeah,
It doesn't always have to be bad, but something that really
like challenged my vision of who I was, my thought of who I was, what I was good at, all of those things. Yeah, but then at this, my biggest challenge is keeping myself humble enough. And when I say humble, like I will judge myself based on intention instead of action. My intentions may be great, but really all that matters at the end of the day is my action. That's how other people come to understand you, is through your actions. So I was giving myself too much grace and not really holding myself properly accountable. And so the biggest thing for me is, and God has done it many times for me, when he's just like slapped me down a peg or two through like a failure or a challenge or something like that. And always after the fact, I'm like, okay, I got it. Thank you. You know what I mean? Like that was very painful. I did not like that at all, but like got it. I'll keep that in check next time.
Yes.
That's why when I fail, it's just an opportunity to learn how to be a better person.
Yeah.
Because almost always it comes back to like me as a person and how I'm functioning. Very rarely is it just like a skill or a decision that was made. It always comes back to something about me.
So my cold lake to jump in is doing this. Like that was like really like, there's no way, you know, just like, this is crazy. What am I thinking?
Yeah.
Okay, I can read from a teleprompter, but like, let's, you know, do all this kind of thing. And I'll tell you what, one of the things that is so hard is that there's so much uncontrollable stuff out there. Like I can't control any of it. I can't control how many people are on right now. I can't control whether people like it or not. All I can do is, okay, stick to my mission, stick to my goals. What do I want to create? Do I love what I'm doing? As long as that's going well, then if people don't like it, they don't like it. If people do, that's great. I'm going to, you know, but I can't, I think, and I've learned that from people in kind of that performance world, like you can't do it for the likes of others. You have to do it for your own pleasure in doing it. Right. And so that gets me to do things that are uncomfortable. That gets me to try things that I feel grossly inadequate for, and
Yeah.
and being able to kind of, okay, I gotta, you know, so then that's where my like, okay, I'm gonna focus on this. I'm gonna research this. I can do this, and that's where my mind goes crazy because I can't be unprepared. You know, so those are things that I think are really why I think self-worth is such a important topic, but I also think it's very vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like when you talk about like truly how you've constructed the picture of yourself inside of you, like that is like extremely precious information
Yeah.
that other people could use against you
Right.
if they chose to. Because now I've just told you all of the most important things about myself, all of the things that I hold the most dear. So once you know those, you have like the absolute recipe to like destroy
Yeah.
me emotionally.
Right.
I agree. Because I just think about there's like things in my that I have realized in my own journey. You know what I mean? That it's like ugh, that I have shared with people, but I only share like if I think it could be helpful to them because I know they are struggling. You know, because there's just things that I'm just like, I don't know. If somebody knew that. Because then that comes that whole fear, you know what I mean? Like they could either destroy me, they could make fun of me, they could, all of these things that like jeopardize my self-worth and how I view myself.
And I think that's particularly hard for people who are in recovery to get vulnerable about, because most people don't come into recovery with any positive schemas about friendships
Yeah.
or positive supports, because everything was so transactional during that period of life that
Yeah.
like there's no positive folder of friendships to pull from. It just like it doesn't exist. It gets like erased. And so being able to overcome that and then figure out how to have positive relationships with people
Right.
Yeah.
is
And
incredibly difficult.
for me, all of my relationships, I feel like positive relationships have came from failed relationships or just relationships that I've had with people that I was unhappy. And I'm like, okay, this is what I don't want, you know? So it's just a journey.
I do think now that you pointed out, it is very interesting how anti-podcast you were. The first time
not-
it got brought up, and Doug was like, "Well, we need to do this, and we need to do this, and we need to do this," and I was like, "Give me a microphone now.
talk.
I'm ready."
I wasn't anti-podcast. I listen to podcasts all the time.
No, but like our own podcast.
I wasn't even anti that. I was just that. Okay, but that overwhelmingness of I'm going to try something that is so out of my comfort zone that I really, you know. So ultimately, I have to ground myself into, you know, reality. Why are we doing this? What's the point?
Right.
And then also keep things in perspective, you know, that because things are so uncontrollable, it's not about me.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, I have to find my worth through things that bring me joy, things that, and facing that challenge. Like I said, like that was something that stretched me. There are things in my job that don't stretch me. It's not my
Right.
complete job, but there are things in my job that don't stretch me. So
Yeah.
doing this would really is something that I probably needed anyways, just to kind of to get me out of the autopilot of
Right.
life
Right.
and do something that I think needed to evolve into. So,
Yeah.
and you know, what else are we going to do during COVID?
Right.
Right.
Just talk to each
Just
other.
talk to each other.
We might as well
Gotta
record
stay
it.
connected somehow. 'cause
Yeah.
we-
Yes.
you know, so, but I just wanted to thank you guys for coming on
Yeah.
and doing the live stream.
Thanks for having
the people that were sharing and asking questions. And
Yeah.
it's been, I love those opportunities to hear from people and be able to kind of get more people involved in the conversation. So,
Yeah.
before we go, remember that Improbable Players, it is June 3rd from what time? 6:30 to 7:30. So it'll be about a 45-minute performance and then a 15-minute question and answer afterwards. And Jenny, you're welcome. It's good to see that you were on. And tickets are on many of our links on our Facebook page, Instagram, pretty much everywhere. Also on our website. So
So they're already on sale.
They're already on
Okay.
sale. Tyler is putting all the different links and everything like that. So we're really looking forward to a good showing. I think the people from Improbable are really excited.
Yeah.
And so we're excited too. So
Yeah.
Cool.
thank you guys for joining us today. Hope
Before
you-
we go.
Oh, we have more?
Yeah. There is a Facebook group
Yes.
called the Resilient Purpose Podcast. It takes, depending on the topic, it takes a lot of bravery and vulnerability to post like public comments that people can see about things. So we created a Facebook group called the Resilient Purpose Podcast. It's a closed group, I believe, right, Kaylee? Is it a closed group?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have to like grant you access to it. So anybody can't just happen upon it and read what you say. So it's a little bit more of like a controlled private space that if you resonated with something that we said on a live stream or something that you heard on a podcast or even a post on Instagram, Facebook, anything, and you didn't feel comfortable to comment, you can go to that group, kind of privately comment so that we get that feedback and we can respond to it in an upcoming live, in a podcast episode, something like that. So it's a little bit more private, a little bit more controlled because, you know, we understand these are some kind of hard topics and maybe you want a safer place to post it. So that's why we made the Facebook group. So if you see something come up and you're like, man, I thought I already followed them. Probably, but we just made a different group for a different purpose. So
Well, and you know, it would be good to kind of, I know sometimes if there is a safer place for people to comment and question and things like that. I mean, I know there are more people that are listening than are commenting.
Yeah.
And so we really want to be able to have a place where people can engage in a productive and healthy way. So,
Yeah.
you know, love to have you. And so go to that link and, you know, let's create that group. So,
yeah.
all right, guys, have a wonderful, what's today? Tuesday?
Yeah.
Wonderful Tuesday and
Tuesday.
the rest of your week. And we're almost in May.
I can't believe it.
So, yay, springtime.
Yeah.
So,
Bring on the Justin Timberlake memes.
right. It's gonna be May. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.